Before he ever fought for Islam, Khalid ibn al-Walid was already Mecca's best cavalry commander. Born into Banu Makhzum, a clan built around horses and war. After Quraysh got crushed at Badr, revenge was the only plan left, and 3,000 men marched on Medina under Khalid's cavalry wing. At Uhud, that revenge nearly slipped away, until the Muslim archers guarding the hill broke ranks to grab loot. And Khalid saw the gap before anyone else. He swung his riders around, hit the exposed rear, and turned a one battle into chaos, wounding Muhammad himself in the scramble. Quraysh pulled back without finishing the job, but everyone on that field already knew who had turned it. Once Mecca and Medina signed their truce, Khalid started rethinking everything he'd fought for. He rode north with Amr ibn al-As, converted, and Muhammad welcomed him like a man he'd been expecting for years. His first battle on the new side turned into a disaster. At Mu'tah, commander after commander went down against the Byzantines. Khalid grabbed control mid-fight, wore out 9 swords in his own hand, and pulled the army out alive, earning the name Sword of Allah that same day. A year later, he led one of the columns into Mecca itself, and when his men hit resistance, he shut it down fast. After Mecca, Muhammad sent him to tear down one of Arabia's most revered idols, Al-Uzza, ending centuries of pilgrimage to the site in a single afternoon. He fought through a tense ambush at Hunain soon after, and by then, his place among Muhammad's inner circle of commanders was beyond question. When Muhammad died in 632, Arabia didn't mourn quietly. It came apart. Tribe after tribe stopped paying zakat or dropped Islam outright, and rebellion spread across the peninsula within weeks. Abu Bakr, the new caliph, refused to let the young state collapse and put Khalid in charge of crushing it by force. First came Tulayha, a self-declared prophet leading a tribal coalition at Buzakha. Khalid broke his army in an afternoon, and Tulayha ran. Tribe after tribe folded as Khalid's army swept through central Arabia, until he reached the camp of Malik ibn Nuwayra, accused of refusing the new caliphate. Malik was executed that night, and by morning, Khalid had married his widow, a decision that would follow him for the rest of his life. Sitting near Abu Bakr through all of this was Umar, not yet caliph himself, but already the one companion nobody dared ignore, and a name that would follow Khalid for the rest of his life. Umar wanted him punished for murder. Abu Bakr called it a misjudgment of war, not a crime, and refused to remove him. Then came Yamama, Musaylima, another self-declared prophet, dug into a walled stronghold known as the Garden of Death. It was the bloodiest fight of the whole rebellion. Dozens of the prophet's own companions died that day, until the same man who'd once killed Muhammad's uncle at Uhud killed Musaylima with the very same weapon. Yamama broke the rebellion for good. Arabia was whole again, and Khalid was no longer just useful. He was indispensable. With Arabia secure, Abu Bakr turned Khalid's army toward the Persian Empire's border, and Khalid crossed into Sassanid Iraq with a small, fast-moving force. At the Battle of Chains, Persian troops fought shackled together, so no one could run. It didn't help them. At Walaja, Khalid tried something almost nobody in the region used, a full pincer maneuver, and closed it around a much larger coalition army. Then came Ulayas, where so many prisoners were executed along a nearby canal that people started calling it the River of Blood. City after city gave in without a fight. Hira paid tribute rather than face what was coming, and Lower Iraq slipped out of Persian hands within weeks. Then, just as fast as it started, the campaign got cut short. Abu Bakr needed Khalid in Syria immediately, and the fastest route there crossed 5 days of waterless desert no army had ever survived. The only way across was 5 waterless days of desert, so the guides slaughtered camels and used their stomachs as makeshift water tanks. And somehow, it worked. Khalid's army walked out of the desert in days instead of weeks, and its sudden appearance in Syria stunned everyone, his own commanders included. At Ajnadain, that speed paid off, a decisive win against Byzantine forces that cracked southern Syria open. Damascus held out for months under siege before falling at night, scaled on one side while negotiators worked the other. Emperor Heraclius answered by raising the largest army the Muslims had ever faced, and the scattered Muslim forces pulled back into the Yarmouk River gorge to make their stand. Right around then, Umar quietly replaced Khalid as supreme commander, but kept it from the army until after the battle. Yarmouk itself was 6 days of fighting inside a windstorm, and Khalid, technically no longer in charge, was still the one directing it, driving the Byzantine line back until it broke against the ravine. Byzantine losses were catastrophic. Heraclius, watching Syria slip away for good, turned back toward Constantinople and never came south again. Only after the battle did Khalid learn he'd already been replaced, and he took the news without a word of protest, still serving under Abu Ubaidah as Homs, and the cities around it fell one after another. Back in Medina, Umar started noticing something that worried him. Soldiers and poets were crediting victories to Khalid personally, not to God or the Caliphate. Then Khalid gave one particular poet a personal gift of 10,000 dirhams, and that was enough to draw real attention. Umar demanded to know where the money came from, Khalid's own share of the spoils or the public treasury. Khalid insisted it was entirely his own. It didn't matter. The image of a general spending like a king had already spread through the ranks. Umar removed him from command permanently, saying flatly that he wouldn't let people put their trust in a man instead of in God. Khalid took it without protest, said he'd served God's cause and never Umar's, and went home to Homs. Still the man every soldier in that army respected most. Umar even sent letters to every province making clear the dismissal wasn't about wrongdoing, protecting Khalid's name even as he ended his career for good. For Umar, this was never really about Khalid the man. It was about making sure no general, however brilliant, stood taller than the cause itself. And that's exactly why he was just as quick to protect Khalid's name once the point had been made. From Homs, Khalid watched the empire he'd built keep growing under other men's command, counting the scars on his own body from more than 100 battles he'd never once lost. In Homs, the wars that never killed Khalid finally gave way to plain illness. His last words were, "I have taken part in so many battles. There is not a span of my body that does not bear a wound from a sword, a spear, or an arrow. Yet here I die now in my bed, just as a camel dies. May the eyes of cowards never find rest." He died at 58, having fought more than 100 battles without ever losing one. Even Umar reportedly wept at the news, saying no woman would ever again bear a man like him. He was buried in Homs, where a mosque still stands over his tomb today, the undefeated sword of Allah, whose career ended not by an enemy, but by a caliph's pen.